Welcome to Going Dark, a podcast about Netflix's sci-fi series, Dark. I'm Dark Dan.
I'm German Olga. And today we're discussing Season 1, Episode 5, entitled Truths.
I was going to call you the Chernobyl chick.
Yeah, I was wondering when I talk about that side of my family, aka both sides of my family. What am I talking about?
The Chernobyl side. So we're talking about truths. This was my favorite episode so far.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good one. But before you hear more about that, let's just give you a little bit of housekeeping, you know? One, this is both a video and audio podcast. You can get us on video at youtube.com/doingOK and audio podcast services such as we are recently added to iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Stitcher. We're already in Spotify and Apple. So,
Audible.
We
don't talk about Audible.
No, we're figuring that out. There seems to be an issue with Audible. But if you have any issues anywhere you're listening, let us know. We have new episodes every Tuesday. This is our first time watching Dark, and these are our reactions as we watch it weekly. What did you think of Truths?
I really like this episode. It kind of surprised me in a lot of both likable and, dare I say, unlikable ways.
Character,
yes. Yeah, but the actual content of the episode was really good. You know, we've been talking for several episodes now. Oh my God, Mikkel is Michael is Mikkel. And I just kind of appreciate that they aren't really
dragging it out.
Exactly. Stringing us along as if that's the mystery of the season. Like we're at the midway point and they're like, you're as smart as we thought you were, and here
well, and also that Jonas knows this quickly, I think is great too.
That was a great reveal.
Yeah. To me, the combination of significant plot movement, including also that like seeing Noah and stuff like that, significant things there with the stranger. The combination of that with legitimate character moments that I found interesting, a lot of it having to do with Hannah. And yeah,
I appreciate the fact that there's more back and forth, that we're not just in the modern day, and that it will
episode,
that it's happening parallel. And I think that's on purpose, but nonetheless I appreciate it.
I really enjoy how often they're doing the montages of showing things side to side. When they first did that, I just kind of assumed it was in case you're stupid, let's put them next to each other.
A one-time thing,
But no, I think they're doing it in a cool way. There's a lot of just artistry to this show that a lot of shows lack.
Absolutely. It's just very cinematic, very gorgeous. I appreciate watching it, with the lights turned off on a big TV. It's very immersive in that way. To the point where sometimes I forget I'm watching a show in German with subtitles too. It's just that good.
It's just that good. All right. Shall we get into our quick recap?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Off the cuff, from my memory banks to your ears. Here we go. Should we start with the past? That's a good place to start. So in the past, Mikkel is in a hospital bed and he's still sad. And Ines, I keep wanting to call her Irene. I don't know why. Ines is his nurse, and she gives him a book that says "I am not afraid." Well, he doesn't open the book yet, but that's what happens. And she ends up talking to a person. He's going to go to Child Protective Services. She doesn't know how she feels about that. Obviously, eventually it ends with her adopting him. At some point, Noah comes in. He's a priest, and he has a big talk about being a priest and about God and how God has a plan for everyone, which kind of parallels the labyrinth thing we hear about later, about the one path that's the correct path for you or whatever. And then he's hanging out, Mikkel, he's just chilling at the hospital outside, and he runs into Hannah. So let's jump back a little bit with Hannah. She is hanging out with Ulrich, and Ulrich is the cool kid. He's talking to her. They seem friendly for sure. Maybe he sees her more of a little sister or something.
That's the vibe I get.
Or just a bestie. I don't know. But he's telling her all about Breakfast Club, I believe. And she's like, oh, maybe we should go see it together. And then he's like, oh, look, it's the hot blonde. I'm going to go talk to her. And Hana is like, oh,
I'm not hot.
I'm not blonde. And so then we have a scene with Ulrich and Katarina, and they are talking about boning. She's like, it's going to happen eventually. Might as well be you. You know, and that's what I said to Olga.
Oh, my God, Dan. Anyway, the day we got engaged, Dan was like, it might as well be you. Anyway, I don't even know what I was going to say that was relevant to the show. Oh, yeah. So I got the vibe that they were actually like dating, like an actual couple. But this conversation almost came off as like, we're just kind of those kinds of flirty friends. Let's just have sex. So I don't.
It was a little unclear. It was kind of an odd conversation, I feel. Like, it would have made more sense if like they had already been like hooking up. And then they paused about, like, are you ready for this next step kind of thing?
Yeah.
We saw them holding hands and stuff. So, like, it did seem boyfriendy, girlfriendy to me. But
it just seems like that kind of, like, immature high school thing where you're like, I don't know. What are we? I don't know.
Ambiguous. It's
horny
complicated.
Teens. Oh, God. For you youths out there who might be watching, that used to be a thing on Facebook.
Facebook. That's what the 50-year-olds use, right?
Yes.
So then back to Hana and Mikkel. Hana is hanging out with her dad as he's driving his truck around town, dropping off dry cleaning, I think.
Seems like it.
And so he's dropping stuff off at the hospital. And so Hana talks to Mikkel at the hospital outside. And she's like, am I hot or not? And Mikkel's like, I don't know, I'm 10. And
I like Harry Houdini.
She's like, wow, Harry Houdini, that's some good shit. And yeah, they have like a nice cute little moment. Definitely, it was a fun, like, this isn't actually the first time they meet each other, but this is kind of their meet cute as eventual husband and wife, which is funny. They had it was a cute moment.
Yeah, I liked it. It was overall very like, you know, again, on the younger edge of like teen romance, you know.
Well, so that was the thing. I had to look up how old young Hana was, I think because of this scene, because I was like, how much older is she than him? Like, it was very unclear because she's hanging out with Katarina and everybody. I wasn't sure if Hana just like had a younger looking face or if she actually was that much younger. So she's, I believe 14, the actress was at this time. So that does put her more in line with Mikkel maybe than with Katarina and Ulrich. Yeah, so that wasn't necessarily clear to me at first, but it kind of makes it make more sense as far as like her being worried about not having developed and things like that.
Right.
And then Hana goes with her dad to the high school, and she hears some giggling, and she sticks her nose where it don't belong.
Yeah, it's less cute going forward for Hana here.
So she pokes her head in. She sees that Katarina and Ulrich are sexing it up.
Yeah, having consensual sex.
And
yet.
She is none too happy. So she tells both her father and police officer Frowny Face that it was unconsensual and really lays it on thick. And Ulrich is arrested.
Yes.
And that was a big ass moment.
Yeah, the police chief's like smirk of self-importance and self-righteousness, like happy that at the word, you know, at the thought of like Ulrich frankly like assaulting another girl because it proves what he thinks about Ulrich is like revolting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think, anything to be like, oh, I got him.
Yeah. He was as bad as I said he was. He's a good for nothing, and no one listened to me.
Yeah.
That's not your takeaway, man.
No. So I'm definitely interested to see where this goes as far as, I mean, presumably Katarina just says, no, that was not true. That's not how it went. But whether anybody knows or finds out that it is Hana that said anything, or Hana takes it back, or what happens.
Yeah. The one thing, they keep putting this emphasis on Katarina being like, I don't want children. I don't want children. Magnus isn't old enough to be like the result of a teen pregnancy. So I was wondering, you know,
if we were
if that was like we're not going to have kids. And then, that thing of punishing teens for having sex by having her have, well, now it's a different kind of punishing teens for having sex. But
yeah, because we know it was 33 years ago.
Exactly. So, and he's at the most 18 as a senior kind of in his last year.
I feel like he's probably 17.
Yeah, probably.
So definitely a dark turn for Hana. And she does not fare much better in the present. So speaking of the present, she keeps blowing up Ulrich's phone and he is shutting her out. So she's like, well, you're not going to answer. I'm going to be a crazy lady and I'm going to show up at your house with food. And gets herself basically invited in and then basically gets herself to be offered a ride by
alone
Ulrich.
With him. Yeah.
Katerina is like, what is up with this shit? And she sniffs her. To see if she is the one.
Yeah, hearkening back to whatever she smelled on Ulrich's hoodie back in the first episode.
Yep.
And would you look at that? It seems like those scents, those odors line up.
Oh, connecting the odors. Ulrich is not happy with Hana and is like, get out of here.
Get lost is what the English subtitles said. Yeah. I'm not sure if that's actually a saying in German.
Yeah, she does the classic thing of like, tell me what you need. And he's like, I have been telling you what I need. I need you to go.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's the thing. Like, she's in love with him. We've known that from the first episode too, where she says, I love you. And he doesn't say it back. I don't think he ever
I didn't
loved
remember
her.
that, actually.
Yeah, I remember noticing that he didn't actually use those words. So she's obsessed with him.
Yeah.
Has been clearly for 33 years, if not more. And it's just
fascinating. I'm fascinated to see more of her marriage before that and how the hooking up started and why Ulrich was in a place where he was vulnerable to that. And definitely making her not very sympathetic, which kind of bums me out a little bit because I'm like, especially the young actress, I'm like, she's so likable, but to a certain degree, that's what makes it cool. Interesting.
Yes.
That she's so inherently, she has such an inherent likability, charisma to her that making her do this stuff, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
But definitely an interesting switcheroo here.
Yeah.
And I think Ulrich is even though so the next thing that happens with him is him denying to Katerina that he's cheating, I still think overall they're doing a good job of making him complex and sympathetic in a way that Hana honestly isn't.
Yeah.
Not to say that she isn't complex, but she is not sympathetic to me at this point.
It's difficult to sympathize with her when their family is going through this loss. And yes, she went through a loss, but her way of dealing with it seems to have been sleeping with a married man, even if he was into it.
Yeah.
But now he's not. So maybe you just need to respect that.
Yeah.
But clearly, respect is not something that she's good at.
No.
Yikes.
Yeah. And the other interesting scene that Ulrich has is he talks with Charlotta about how did I get here? Basically, I became a cop because of how badly my brother's thing was handled. And now I'm, an incompetent cheater. I'm everything that I didn't want to become, kind of.
Yeah.
And then we have that interesting moment with Charlotta talking about the 33-year cycle.
And how actually the 365-day cycle is wrong and that this is when things line up. It's cosmic deja vu, and it ties into the Big Bang and creation, which is that conversation Noah and Mikkel were having, and how her grandfather was a physicist, I guess, or some kind of scholar. So that can be who's her grandfather? Maybe he's Tannhaus, maybe.
Yeah, could he be the old book writer?
Maybe, yeah. So this is all just weaving a web.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And speaking of Charlotta, we actually start the episode with her talking to her daughter about the fact that Yasin, her boyfriend, is now missing. He's the third missing child. So she basically gets Ellie to describe him to a sketch artist. So we end the episode with a sketch of Noah.
It's pretty accurate. It feels like it's only a matter of time until, they find him because it's, that's his face.
And he wears a hat.
Right. Very distinctive.
And he's a priest man. And then her husband takes her aside and she's like, where were you that night, and she shows him that she has the picture that the night Mikkel disappeared, he wasn't where he said he was, and she's like, do you have anything to do with this stuff? And he's just like, you're nuts, I'm out of here. So interesting thing, because like you wouldn't expect, she doesn't have that much evidence. She is reaching, and I would be offended if I was accused of that, but also he doesn't say no.
Right. And he also wasn't at the office.
Yeah.
And I mean, their relationship is messed up. Yeah. Like, they shouldn't be together in this way. But that's like another story,
Yes, sir. So the episode also starts with a phone tag where Bartosz is trying to message Marta. Marta doesn't want to hear him. She calls Jonas. Jonas doesn't want to hear her. Then Bartosz and Jonas, they bro up, and they have some...
They bro down.
And they have some video game time. And they don't actually, play video games because their PlayStation 4 controllers don't light up. So it's fake.
Well, they were smoking. They were high, so that's why they sucked at the video game. They didn't realize that their controllers weren't actually doing it.
They were just watching a Let's Play.
And they forgot. They were just so stoned.
If anybody recognizes that video game, I'd be interested to see if that had any connection of any importance, because I did not recognize that game off the top of my head.
You're a gamer boy.
I am such a gamer boy. So Bartosz is like, I heard from... Eric's dealer, I'm going to go meet him up. Can you come with me? And Jonas is like, yeah, sure, bud. And then he promptly doesn't do that. And he goes and sees Marta's play, which maybe a dress rehearsal, it seemed like.
It was a little odd.
Yeah, because they're like, we're almost nobody there.
And people were like wandering in the aisles.
I'm going to say it's a dress rehearsal. Anyway, he goes...
Disappointing turnout for the official thing.
Yeah. So he goes and he sees Marta, and she's amazing, and he goes and he talks to her about how amazing she is, and then he explains, hey, I wasn't in France, I was in the Nutter, and I had PTSD. And she's like, why didn't you tell me? He's like, because I didn't want you to think I was a crazy boy. And then he's like, so what was up with last summer? We were something. Yeah. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, why did you call me and not Bartosz? And then she's like,
oh, Dan. Oh, no. Oh, God. Did not need to hear that so crisply in my ears. Anyway, yeah. Basically,
do you want me to redo that?
No. If I had to suffer, so do our listeners. This is a podcast of sadism.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah. I mean, I appreciate the fact that, again, they didn't super string this along. Yeah. I mean, even this, I think, kind of this love triangle one.
String it along. Ariadne's string is the play.
Yes.
Would do.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, the point is that I'm glad that, Bartosz doesn't know yet, but I think he's kind of getting the message. Jonas ignored him. Mm-hmm. His girlfriend's ignoring him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The show ignored him for a while.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll be the next one taken.
Well, I think they try to subvert that by him getting out of the car at the end.
But that doesn't mean that he won't eventually be taken.
I think that he won't be.
All right. Well, so he ends up meeting up with Noah, who looks exactly the same, except his hand's old. It might have been old in the other version too, but they emphasize his old hand.
Yeah.
So that's up with Bartosz. After the makeout sesh, Jonas goes home and he finds a package.
Oh, forgetting a very important scene. This is the problem with Dan's off the cuff recap.
We remembered it though. So earlier in the episode, before he went and saw the play, he was hanging out at his dad's grave, and the stranger appeared and talked about labyrinths and stuff.
He revealed that he knew Jonas's dad, that he saved his life once.
Yeah, long ago. He didn't realize it at first, but blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. Labyrinth.
Yes.
And so Jonas is like, the fuck? And then later on, he opens a package, and it's from the stranger, and it has a cool, glowy flashlight from the future and a Geiger counter and an important message.
It has it looks like a ravaged by time copy of the letter that Enos opened
in the pilot.
The night Mikkel disappeared. And look at that. Mikkel, same person, confirmed. Jonas knows. And the stranger has had this clearly for a very long time.
Yep.
It's not as crisp as when Enos had it. So
yeah. And so then he travels to see the old man in the time, old time man.
The man with the clocks.
Yes.
who we've kind of seen working on that machine.
Yeah. All right. So wrapping up that beautiful wrap up of the recap that I did, let's get into the points of interest.
So beautiful, Dan. Okay. So the main one that we have is kind of the theme of the labyrinth in this episode. You have Martha's play. She's Ariadne. You have the myth of Ariadne's string. Very interesting how that is being brought up right now.
Crossover podcast, as right now on our Percy Jackson podcast, it is the Battle of the Labyrinth. All about Ariadne's string is very vital to the plot there.
Who would have thought?
Check out Ranking Rick Riordan on podcast services.
And on this YouTube channel.
Yep.
Yes. So, and we have the stranger in his hotel room. We have his wall of craziness. There's like prints of a labyrinth there as well. And obviously his conversation with Jonas about like life is a labyrinth.
He literally says labyrinth,
yeah. And the right path just leads you deeper and all of that.
Yeah, and you also mentioned that he left him string.
So yeah, that's from the Kawaii Slarty Bartfast. She notes that the red string left on Jonas's bike by the stranger in the previous episode is like Jonas is handling it here too. So string, it's important. And it's red.
It's red. There's a lot of red lipstick in this episode too.
Yes.
Be it Marta or
Hannah. Hannah is an adult who came to the house as a seductress. Wipes it away. It's messed up, man. A lot of this is Jonas slept with his aunt. Like,
oh yeah. I still don't want to believe it. I'm like, was Marta adopted? Is Marta actually from 3008? Who's to say?
How does that fix things?
She doesn't have to be their child. She is someone else's child.
Maybe Katerina cheated on Ulrich at one point.
That's the hope.
Oh my God.
That is the hope. I don't want them to be incest people.
They just got together. Now Jonas has to deal with
his aunt.
Yeah.
He has to go, you know what?
He might not believe it.
He might just be like, hey, we're not going to have kids, so whatever.
Oh my God, Dan. And next point of interest. I'm done talking about this. All right. So we just have the idea of Noah in general. Like, yeah, you bring up that he doesn't seemingly age as much as he should.
Well, that's the question. Or is he just time traveling back and forth? Or
is he just a drug dealer?
And the drugs keep him alive?
No, I meant like, what if he has nothing to do with time?
And then how is he immortal?
I don't know. The drugs.
That's what I was thought you were saying.
Yeah. No, I just wasn't sure if I wasn't paying close enough attention because he was sitting in the shadows of the car.
No, he looks exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then yeah, something's up with that priest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something is up with that priest. Yeah. And I think he definitely has to do with the time travel stuff because we know that one of the hooded guys say he's a friend of Noah.
Yes.
So.
Well, what if there's just an army of like drug dealers that just so happen to share a uniform with the time travel guys?
One can only hope. But also, Noah gave the watch to Charlotta.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. And said that he remembered her and knew her.
Yeah.
And he must be the new priest in town that the farmer, the rancher who had the sheep was referring to.
Oh, yeah.
So just like his arrival in the past, that his arrival in the town, just, that's when Mads disappeared. Now Yazan disappears. Eric, obviously. So, and the fact that, and that's why I think that Bartosz is a red herring, because I think like it's not, it might also be a drug trade thing. Like, he's clearly wealthy. Like, he has a driver and that kind of thing. So, you know, he could be just conniving in two different ways.
Maybe he has a drug business to subsidize his technology business.
Yeah.
His time travel affairs.
Yes.
Or maybe he just uses time travel for capitalist gain.
Yeah.
Who's to say? Maybe he's the publisher of the book, and the book sales were through the roof.
Something tells me they weren't. Esoteric, like, physics books don't seemingly sell that well.
Who's to say?
Who's to say? In Germany, what's a hit novel? Yeah. But yeah, I feel like that kind of covers Noah for now. We talked about Katerina and, you know, the rape accusations quite a bit. However, one thing we failed to talk about is it seemed like she had some bruising and cuts around her eye when they did that, like,
ending montage
side by side of her in the present and her in the past.
Yeah, which I totally didn't notice on my first watch, but I have better vision.
It didn't just look like makeup of her, like, crying after Ulrich's arrested. I think it might be something like in her home life. You know, the police come and say, you know, did this happen? And instead of maybe coming clean that it was consensual, someone in her household did that to her. Because nothing would indicate that that would have been Ulrich.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I don't believe that at all.
Yeah. So, interesting catch there.
Yeah, so that kind of covers that. But is there anything else we wanted to say about Jonas that we didn't earlier?
About Jonas
and his package.
Jonas's package. Marta loves Jonas's package.
Gross.
So, I mean, we already know the stranger gave him some new info about the caves, which one could argue are a labyrinth or a maze.
You have to go deeper and deeper to get out of the other side.
And he now gave him, I would say, 2 other objects that would help you get through the caves, between the future lantern thing and the Geiger counter, which, you know, be it something helpful for, you know, how close you are to the nuclear reactor thing, or... I mean, I am definitely on board with your theory about there being a nuclear meltdown in the future.
That, to me, like, the fact that you have this, like, very modern seeming lamp that doesn't have any, like, switches. It doesn't seemingly have, like, a battery source. And then you have this other thing, a Geiger counter. Like, that to me just confirms the future is a nuclear wasteland. And that Jonas is going to need this stuff. And he's going to need to...
That's interesting that confirms that future. But, like, if it was a nuclear wasteland, you would think you wouldn't have any future technology. Like, if it was dystopian future where everything was, like, destroyed, you wouldn't have some hyper new technology that has a...
Unless people keep innovating before that. Yeah.
Or, like you said, maybe just Vindom gets destroyed and not, like, the whole planet or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. The more I look at Jonas and his yellow coat, the more it makes me think of, like, a hazmat suit. You had the theory that the stranger is Jonas.
Yes, I don't really think that.
You don't think that anymore?
I mean, okay. So
I've been going back and forth.
So I wanted to talk about this, everything we can think about with the stranger at this point, right? So he knew Mikkel. He was saved by Mikkel. He has seemingly definitely been to the future between the light and the letter being ancient. But we also know he's now going to the past, and I would argue has been in the past before if he has been connected with Mikkel before. So like because I think that he was connected with Mikkel, like, you know, before Jonas was alive, probably. That's just my surmising that.
Okay.
So we have no idea where he started from, whether he's from the past, whether he's from
the future.
The one thing I am going to guess is that when he says he saved my life and I didn't understand at the time, I think that has to do with the suicide. I think that the reason he committed suicide, something about that is creating a ripple effect that protected the stranger. So I kind of want to go through the various males that this could end up being. Because, like, at first I was like, oh, is this Jonas from the future? And he's bopping around helping his younger self.
If Jonas is, say, like 13, 17, And, things happen cyclically every 33 years. And someone told us in the past that even though this actor seems younger, he is 50.
Yeah.
So, or around there. So, I mean, that could line up that this is like a current teenager, including... I'm sort of getting on board that this is Jonas.
I guess it could be him saying, I knew your father a long time ago. That still could be Jonas, because now for him it was
a long time ago.
Yeah.
And he saved my life indirectly. Yeah. And him having the letter and knowing it's important. I don't know.
Okay. You know what? Yeah, you got me back on board with my original theory.
I just don't think this is like Bartosz or Magnus.
Yeah, because so that's what I was trying to think about. There's Bartosz, Magnus. I thought Yasin. I don't think it's Yasin, but I'm just saying as options. And then in the past, is there anybody in the past that it could be? We don't actually know that. We don't know that many males in the past, right?
We just have Ulrich, Mads. I mean, Mads, we don't know.
That's true. It still could be Mads.
It could be Mads.
Yeah.
He could be Mads. He could have somehow saved Mads in the past or interfered with these like strangers in the hoods in a way that could have freed Mads.
Yeah. So, at this point, I would say it's either Mads or Jonas.
Whew. Yeah. I think that's safe.
And Mads was my original theory for a while, but it's
been going back and forth. Yeah. So that's it for our points of interest. A little bit of theorizing sprinkled in there. Let's get into feedback.
And if you want to be part of feedback in the future, you can email us at ourpodcastfeedback@gmail.com. That's ourpodcastfeedback@gmail.com. Also, you can leave us a comment down below in the comments of the video. Like some of these fine folks did.
Yes, you can also rate and review us on YouTube.
Wow,
beat you to it.
Angry. Better review us or I'll
Not on YouTube, on Apple. I messed that up.
Apple and Stitcher and Amazon and Audible if it's working. Yes.
It helps people find us.
Pretty please.
Yes. Okay, so getting into feedback, we got an email from Jay via our podcast feedback@gmail.com. Hi guys, it is interesting that the Cold War era and the 80s are suddenly in vogue with Stranger Things, Queen's Gambit, Deutschland 83, and the brilliant Chernobyl.
Never heard of Deutschland 83.
Me neither. And I'll be honest, I forgot to Google it before we started. It might be like a European show that hasn't hit our streaming networks yet. I wondered how dark would play in the US, as culturally it is very European. So when young Hannah asks, is this the apocalypse? The answer should be probably. To put this in context, the 80s was a pretty difficult decade in Cold War Europe. Deindustrialization, unemployment, massive anti-nuclear protests the constant threat of nuclear confrontation, with the USA and Russia pursuing mutually assured destruction as a deterrent. And then came Chernobyl in 1986, which cast an existential fear of contamination over the whole continent. It affected everyone from that era. In the UK, we worried about going out in the rain and we couldn't eat our contaminated sheep. If Vinden's 80s kids carried this angst into their adult lives, it is not really surprising. But dark turns the dial up on this. In contrast, the deaf kids are refreshingly unaffected by the oppressiveness of the town and can express themselves freely for a brief moment. The plot continues to thicken.
Interesting. Well, so Chernobyl aside, I do think a lot of this applies to more than just Europe. I mean, if you even just look at something like Watchmen was...
was the whole...
came out in the 80s, was built around the Cold War for a reason. 1 minute to midnight on the Armageddon clock or whatever it is. I think definitely it was a time of doom.
Yes.
But I think being near Chernobyl has to elevate that significantly.
Yeah. So this is where some of my family history comes in. My family's from Belarus and not that far away from Chernobyl. So my mom and uncle, like my family, they were like teens at that time, and my grandmother worked like in a dairy factory, and they would literally like have Geiger counters for their like the milk deliveries from the countryside, and they would go off the like Geiger counter, like they'd hit the maximum for the milk. Like this is something that my family is always just like casually kind of like, oh yeah, Chernobyl, that was awful. And I'm like, you people were like not that many miles away.
Nope.
Like, I think within 100 miles of Chernobyl.
Olga was built on radioactive milk.
I was born, nearly a decade later.
That's why I said you were built upon
okay.
it.
Thank you for clarifying. But yeah, that angst and like the cover-ups and the attitudes towards like government and like bureaucracy and whatever. Like my family carries that like harshness and that like disillusionment with them, and they were on that other side of the Iron Curtain relative to seemingly Vinden too. But
Vinden.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Any other emails?
Yes, I forgot what we were doing.
Leaving that in there.
No. I was like, and Dan continues with his 50-minute long recap off the top of his head. All right, so Alex Jones.
Ooh.
Really hope it's an innocuous Alex Jones.
It's got to be a great theory because he has such great theories.
Okay. So Alex starts off by quoting, I believe, me from a previous episode. Hannah is too square for Ulrich. He needs a bad girl. Can we just pause, memorize that line, and revisit it again later on? Because I had to laugh quite a bit when I heard that. Yep. Yeah. She was way more of a bad girl than I think either of us thought she could be.
She a little cray. Yeah.
Alex continues, Captain Future was a big hit in Germany in the 1980s, based on an anime show on TV, and it had a comic series as well. So it is also a pop culture reference for the German audience. The red lipsticks that someone gets killed over that Katarina talks about is another pop culture reference to a song from the 1980s called Genie Part 1 by Falco. It caused a huge scandal back then because it was not only sung from the killer's perspective, but also had a voiceover line from a very renowned TV news anchor talking, confusing some people as to whether this was a real case on hearing it the first time and being disgusted by it. So naturally, kids would want to hear and to talk about it. H.G. Tannhaus is clearly a reference to H.G. Wells, but also a reference to Blade Runner. One of the last lines in the movie is Roy talking about seeing ships burning at Tannhauser Gate.
Huh.
Yeah, interesting. So thank you for the education. This is cool.
Cool.
Very informative. Our last bit of feedback today comes from Lacey Nave. As for Jonas, at the end of the day, he is the main protagonist of the show. However, the show does often not focus on him for long periods of time in episodes to show how all the other characters' lives intertwine and affect each other, which becomes extremely important. I think we got, that vibe, especially now.
I've heard everything is connected.
Yes. Like string knotted, and you have to sever the ties of the string, according to Ariadne via Marta.
Should I make a prediction right now that Hannah will murder Katarina?
Oh, no. Let's not manifest that.
Well, I mean,
I think Ulrich will murder Hannah.
Well, maybe. I just think there's going to be some murder involving this red lipstick.
You really think so?
I think possibly. The red lipstick's happening a whole lot, and it was initially tied to murder. So.
Or is Hannah going to frame Ulrich for Katarina's murder or the kidnappings of the children? I think things repeat themselves every 33 years. She's going to be awful, and she's going to frame him and ruin his life because he tried to dump her.
Oh my God.
That's my theory. I just escalated your thing, didn't I?
That would be crazy. Somehow that's worse than murdering his
wife. Know. Maybe murdering her and framing him for it. Yeah, that's kind of worse. So Lacey continues, shit will be getting weird and crazy. Enjoy. Nice connection with the Doppler name. Yes, the Doppler effect is a physics-based phenomenon, but it might just be an Easter egg without looking further into greater significance. Is that a hint that we should Google the Doppler effect? However, something that this show does that I personally love as a science nerd is that they take a time/physics/quantum physics concept or theory and use it as a reoccurring theme for the season. They're usually introduced and talked about via the narration by Tannhaus. You guys are too early in the season for me to talk about this further, but it's neat and existential. And I do think we're kind of getting into there at the midpoint by it even being in Charlotta's, bank of knowledge. I think each episode, the fact that they're tying it into Greek mythology, into the ancient beliefs and talking about that is kind of de-escalating the science.
Nova's a priest too.
Yes.
Yeah. So
spiritual is in there too.
Showing the multiple angles. Definitely some lost feelings here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lost the show, not.
I'm so lost.
Not existentialism lost, although a little bit of that too.
Yeah.
All right, really good feedback, guys.
Yeah,
Keep sending it in. Thank you so much.
And write us reviews, or Olga will be mad.
I'll sick my Chernobyl cows on you.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Bye-bye.
Future.
Okay.